next question. I would love to explore line 4 as a conscious line versus an unconscious line. So Aisling, I'm going to start with you with a line 4 conscious line as a 4/6. How would you describe your experience with your line 4 as a conscious line, once you learned about it and once you've been living your human design experiment, and how your 4 shows up?
Well, actually, before I knew anything about human design, I identified with what we would now describe as the 4th line. I thought that's who I was, like chatty, Gemini, buzz, networking. And I really thought that's who I was. But obviously I was a reflector who needed time and space. 4th line needs time and space. And I was in huge conflict to the point of getting depression and, like being diagnosed with depression and anxiety and all these kind of things. And I remember journaling when I was, a teenager. It's like, how come, the thing that I love the most is where I feel this anxiety, social anxiety, when it's the thing that I love the most. So even though I hadn't learned any of this stuff, I was very aware of the 4th line and this conflict, which I didn't understand. So yes, once I knew that all the things that have already been said about the network and relationships, because I've got lots of friends who have line 3s who are quite happy to cut relationships and change relationships, and it freaks me out every time they say it. We're chatting about human design and I'm going, yeah, oh my god.
Bonds made and broken.
Yeah, just it's finished. So I got a lot of relief from the first reading that I had, and the nervousness as well, and the fragility of the 4th line, and the fact that you are designed to be selective and you're not for everyone. So that's the first thing that I got, was the relief from that. Actually in business it's been so helpful, and just knowing that things are going to come from your network is very clarifying, because if you put all these posts out there everywhere, which of course if it's aligned, that's what you do, what I would say, regardless of your design, but you won't worry if you put it out somewhere and nobody comes back to you. Like, it wasn't a problem for me that some of the places that we advertised on there weren't very many responses. I wasn't surprised. I was just, So I think I am very conscious of the networking ability. It was new to me to hear Karen Curry Parker's description as the stabilizer, which I love. And people always say, I feel really safe around you. And then when I turn up, people go, like my friend goes, oh, Aisling's here, everything feels okay again now. And even on the program that we were running, they were like, yeah, you're the stabilizer. You're the one who makes us feel stable. So that's been quite a new revelation to me. And then I'd have to say that because I am coming off the roof at the moment, I'm in a space where I'm being out in the world and networking and having fun, and then I'm back in. It's like I'm being pulled back, right? And I'm like, I want to go out there. So I have I can see from my younger self there was a lot of conflict. This is before I knew human design, between that 3rd line and the 4th line. And now and also when I had the reading and she said that the body is like the 6th line and it wants to be at one remove and have its own space. That was such a huge relief for me. So the 4th line was probably my favorite aspect of myself when I was younger, before I knew human design. And I said, now I know about it, it's a lot of things are slotted into place. And then it's just working with that. I think I'm quite at peace with, like right now, when there's nothing happening, I know that's my time to look after myself. And then the anxiety might come through a bit, but I know to just sit with that and allow that to process. So I would agree with a lot of the things that are said about the 4th line, definitely. And I still notice the fear of rejection that comes up, but at least I'm at peace with it. It's like, that's okay. It's just what's happening. So yeah, it's I very much enjoy it. 4th line.
Well, there's something interesting you said a lot of great things, but one thing that really stood out for me was when you were talking about when you were younger. So,
Mm,
pre-human design and really
mhm.
identifying with that fourth and having fun with it and enjoying it. And I was kind of giggling to myself thinking, well, yes, you were a 4-3 at the time, right? And it was
Yeah.
like, wee, experimentation, right? And before your Saturn return at 29, where suddenly it's like roof and that, but is going to be a silly analogy, but when you're talking about going out and being that fourth line and then retreating and kind of there's one of those little songs, you put your left foot in, you put your left foot out, you're sort of like you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, right? And just in a fun kind of lighthearted way to really think about that. Yes, you want to be in that space and that people, and oh, now you're just kind of in your own space, right? And recalibrating, and then back out, and then in and out, and and how important that dance is and that
Mhm.
relationship and giving yourself the space for both.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd known my design, or if I'd had a parent who understood my design and they'd done a little song like that for me and explained it, imagine, like, could have saved me years of agony and angst, because I wanted to be, and again, there's more, all the other parts of the open sentence thing. I wanted to kind of, this is the sort of person that I am. I wanted that certainty, and it was like, why do I get anxious when I'm in this space? So yeah, but yeah, even if a parent knows your design or your child's design, and you can teach them that it's okay that they're not, that they have all these different aspects to them, I think that would be just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And interesting, you wanted that certainty as a design that has zero defined centers, right?
I know, but I couldn't think of anything worse now. So I'm finally getting into all the aspects of my design. I'm thinking of it like a kaleidoscope. The pattern changes and it changes and it changes, and just learning to enjoy it and sit in the gaps now. But yeah, it'd be amazing if somebody could have given me a tip off.
I love that description. You're living a kaleidoscope life as a
Yeah,
reflector, right? Because you're
yeah.
going through that's very cool. Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. And now I probably won't get that song out of my head for the rest of the day. So I just thought
There's a dance that goes with it.
I'd. Karen, I would love for you to share the line 4 experience, having your line 4 on the unconscious side of your design.
Um, so the top level thing is, I have times where I feel very friendly and I have times where I don't. And other people have always felt very comfortable approaching me and just getting into it, like getting into real stuff. And I'll go back to the retail period of my life where, sometimes I would meet a client and I would take them back into the fitting room and they would literally get naked and start telling me their life story. And so there's like this underlying friendliness that other people, get a sense of and they respond to. And before I knew my design and before I knew how to name that, I was like, what am I giving off that makes people think I want to hear all these crazy stories about their lives? Like, I would get so overwhelmed and confused by the level of transparency that some people would just bring to me. And I really felt like I remember distinctly having conversations with people where I'm like, I'm not manifesting this. Like, I'm not consciously putting that out there. And then I learned my design and I'm like, oh, I'm literally not consciously putting it out there. It just is. It's a thing that I can't see about myself. So that's a big part of it. And even now, knowing my design, I can observe it and kind of laugh about it, where people just start telling me their secrets. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is the line 4 at work. This is my 1333 at work, So there's that piece. And then there's also like my dating life in my teens and all through my 20s. I like lived in the friend zone. And that's a very line 4 thing too. Like, I don't think we've talked a lot about like sexuality or bonding strategy or whatever, but yeah, the like friend to boyfriend pipeline has always been very vague for me. So I would like have a crush on a boy, And then I would become his best friend. And then I would be sitting there like, this is not what I want. I don't want to just be friends. But then it was like, well, I can observe you up close if we're friends. So there's like, yeah, the friendliness thing is probably number one in terms of like how I experience it on the unconscious side on a daily basis.
And in your work, how does that unconscious side show up with your clients?
I mean, in the work, it is, people feeling that kind of stabilizing force and feeling safe to tell me their secrets. And then it's like, I can be their confidant, and then we can really get into the guts of what's going on. And so in my practice as a wellness coach and human design reader, my clients need to trust me if they're going to start really unpacking all of their stuff. And a lot of times it's very, very sensitive information, and the line 4 comes in super handy in that there's that frequency of like, this is secure. Like, this is a secure space for you to do this. And like, yeah, there's something safe about like the space that I can hold as a 4th line.
Yeah. So there's almost that space of, you feel like you're talking to a trusted friend, even if you're somebody who's new to them in terms of meeting.
Yeah. And the conundrum for me is always like, when I'm getting paid for that, I can commit to it fully and I'm conscious of it and I feel like it's intentional. And then when it happens out in the wild, like in my private life, I can be surprised by it and not prepared for it. And the preparation piece is always kind of running in the background too, of like, am I ready for it? Like I don't enjoy being surprised in that way sometimes. So it's a funny dance and a conundrum to kind of go back and forth between really relying on it heavily and loving it, and then being like, what?
Yeah. I guess for you, it's contextually appropriate in certain circumstances.
Yes.
However, it is your design. It's always you. It's always on, whether you're even, thinking about it or not.
Yeah. And it kind of comes back to the surrender thing again. Like, I can surrender to it and watch it and watch myself react to it too, like.
You've got a thumbs up comment about your out in the wild comment. I've never thought of that.
I don't have.
That's how I'm going to refer to it now. When I'm out shopping, I'm out in the wild.
Yeah. Like
the wild jungle of the suburbs.
When I'm off duty, out in the wild jungles of Lawrence, Kansas.
Awesome. Kalyani, we'll go to you, and then I'll check in with some of the comments. So yes, on your unconscious side, as a 2/4, talk to me about that.
It's very interesting because it's a push-pull, right? The 2 wants the alone time, and the 4 is like, no, network, be around people. And in my younger days, I didn't honor my line 2, and I just kept pushing the unconscious side, the 4th. And then there was that burnout. There was that absolute burnout. It's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be around people. I need to be alone. That push-pull, it's always that push-pull for me, right? But again, I have the hanging gate 13, the gate of the listener, with the 4th line, and people will pour everything. It's like a verbal vomit when they're around me because they feel it's safe. My daughter's 15, and all of her friends are like, oh, your mom's so nice. And she's like, my mom. She gets so possessive. No, my mom, So, and she says, Mom, why do you give them that attention? It's like, don't give it to them. They just come to me. What am I supposed to do? Ignore them. I did a presentation in her school a couple of months ago, and one of the popular girls came up to me and she spoke to me for 5 minutes. I honestly do not remember what she said to me. And to this day, months later, my daughter's still hounding me. You don't remember what that girl said to you. She doesn't even look at me. She doesn't even talk to me. And she spoke to you for a solid 5 minutes and you don't remember. I was like, I served whatever purpose I was meant to serve in that 5-minute conversation, and I moved on. I don't hold on to that energy of that conversation. So another thing with the 4th line and being emotionally undefined is when people put their stuff on you and they share and all of that stuff, it's so important to be able to stay in your own energy. And I experienced that yesterday when I had a very serious situation come up at my daughter's school, and she was in a very bad state, but I surprised myself, and this is just, again, the awareness. I surprised myself by not getting drawn into that energy and being able to sit down calmly and write in my mind, a very, very good, to the point email to the principal to have the situation sorted out. And that's the whole thing is, yes, people will feel you're safe, but then you have to honor a boundary in that too. Is like, yes, I am safe, but I need to be in my own energy. And that's kind of a push-pull I'm having with my mom right now, as she is in her late 70s and she's clinging to me. And I'm kind of honoring this boundary. And I'm saying, you know what? I get it. You miss me. And that's okay. But it's not something I need to fix for you. Where in the past, I would just dive in and try and fix everything. So the awareness is so, so important with that fourth line. You've got to be aware of whose energy you're taking on. You're listening to all these stories, you're the safe space, but make sure your personal space is safe. And that's not being invaded by other people needing to feel safe and clinging to you.
I find boundaries sometimes can be a lifelong lesson, and especially depending on how we were raised or what we saw modeled. And that definitely can be a challenge, because as a 4, if you feel so incredibly comfortable, like you said, that safe space, that can just be, if you have conditioning of being a people pleaser, that can be extremely, you can get very crispy fried over that. Yeah, for sure.